Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that will focus on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Monday morning, progressives, and welcome to the April 14th, 2025 edition of Choose Views. Yes, 773-763-9278. Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, and iHeartRadio. And, of course, email me at richard@wcpt820.com. I know I've got a few emails to respond to because I was not responding to them the past couple of days, but I will get to them today. I promise you guys. Catch me on Substack. Should be some new postings later this week. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcast or Spotify. There you can get Choose Views, short version and long version. Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, driving it home with none other than Patty Vasquez. The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath, Out Chicago, and our other shows and interviews. Check out our Heartland Signal platform. That would be heartlandsignal.com. Great place to go. Great articles, great posts, great things that you can just, further your knowledge and make things a little bit easier to understand. At least try. And that's a good place to be, to pass on to people that you care about, as we always say. We have a busy show today, and I'll start by just saying welcome back to me, but welcome back to you guys as well. It's good to be back and chopping it up with you wonderful WCPT listeners anywhere and however you find us, as we just said, on all of the different social media outlets. That's a great place to be, to check out our shows and pass that on. I've talked to a number of people that have said, I found you, I was referred to, your show was referred to me, or your station was referred to me, and I passed you on to somebody that I know, and that's always a great thing to hear. Today's show will be busy. We have our new sort of riding companion who is one of the really, I guess you could say, stars in this conversation that we're currently in our current political climate, and that's Sarah Jones, who's the managing editor and co-publisher at Politicus USA. She'll be with us in the 7 o'clock hour today. And then Rich Logis from Leaving MAGA will be joining us, along with the guest Jason Riddle, to talk about Leaving MAGA and what that's all about, and what they've done in creating an organization that is to help the people who can't figure out what to do now that that MAGA has been exposed. I guess you could put it that way. And Rich will be with us to talk about that. Sarah, I'm looking forward to chatting with again this morning. We had her on a couple of weeks ago, and Sarah's decided to join us again. So I'm looking forward to those conversations this morning. Later today, live, local, and progressive with Joan Esposito. She'll be joined by writers. Let me put my glasses back on, Devin. I can't believe I took them off, pretending like, okay, I'll be reading the big letters. No. Joan will be joined by writers, theater, artistic director Braden Abraham, Chicago Tribune investigative reporter Ray Long, Dan Schaefer of the Recomulation area and Civic Media in Wisconsin, and American Writers Museum president Carrie Cranston on the new exhibit American Prophets, Writers, Religion, and Culture. Live, local, and progressive, weekdays 2 to 5 p.m. here on WCPT, Progressive Talk for 20 years. And tonight, driving it home, Patty will be talking to Warren Hawks Priest and Peter Sorellis of Source Solar, and positivity expert and podcaster Jen Zanotti. Driving it home with Patty Vasquez today, 5 to 7 p.m. Central, WCPT 820, the Heartland Signal website, TuneIn, YouTube, and Facebook. On tomorrow's show, my guest will be Dr. Pierre Johnson, lead OBGYN for Laredo Hospital here in Chicago, Women's Health Wellness Center, and Stanford Thompson, executive director at Equity Arc, which works to create the level playing field for the BIPOC classical musicians in the United States. So that'll be a really, really great interview to tomorrow. So just giving you guys a little bit of the update and getting the voice and all that in gear this morning. I didn't do my. I'm joking when I say this. I didn't do my scales in the car like I normally do, but I never do them anyhow. So there you go. I just talked to myself in the car on the way here. But it's good to be back and good to be here to chat with you guys about all that's happening in our crazy political, social, and economic world. And last week was one of those weeks where we watched so much chaos take place. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit this morning in this first hour. But the big shout out, the big thank you goes to my great friend, Michelle Peltier, for sitting in last Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And our good friend Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics Podcast, as you guys know, stopped by. And that was cool to listen to from afar. And we had our normal greatness from our board engineers. Henry did a fantastic job, and I appreciate his help. And I know Devin was sending some good vibe to Henry, as they always do, because they're good guys like that. So thanks to Michelle for being with us, and thanks to Michelle for sitting in for me. It was greatly appreciated. And I can't thank you enough for the great work that you guys did. It was good to hear the Michelle, as I like to call it, the Michelle Peltier giggle. And it's a good one. Yes, see, Devin's even nodding to that one. So absolutely cool to have Michelle in the mix last week. So let's take a quick turn over to Choose Views News this morning here, April 14th, 2025. And as we all know, the stock market rebound that lost momentum, and of course was up and down as major U.S. indexes pulled back from the surges that they saw, jumped over 3% at the start of trading. U.S. stocks soared at the fastest pace since 2022, according to Bloomberg data, before sliding back as the White House confirmed it planned to go ahead with the tariffs as steep as 104% on China. The gyrations come amid intense volatility in the financial markets. So here we go. We knew how that was going to play out. Consumer sentiment skidded again almost to an almost 3-year low as inflation expectations spiked to levels not seen since 1981. The University of Michigan's survey showed overall confidence dropped by 11% to 50.8 in mid-April, which we're already here, the second lowest on record since stretching back to 1952. Trump's tariffs, the lift on key tech items, as you guys may have heard more over the weekend. Some are viewing it as a major win for tech companies and consumers, because smartphones, computers, and key electronics will be excluded from the Trump administration's reciprocal tariffs on Chinese goods. The exemption provides significant relief to Apple, which makes most of its products in China. Ahead of the move, Apple reportedly shipped 600 tons of iPhones from India to the United States. One tech analyst calls the exemptions a, quote, dream scenario for tech investors, avoiding what could have been devastating costs and stock losses. And some of the custom fixes, some of the customs fixes that are part of this glitch, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection says it has fixed a glitch on its computer system that left authorities unable to collect tariffs for more than 10 hours. According to Customs, the entry codes that allow shippers to apply duty-free status temporarily stopped actually working. The snafu came as businesses, shippers, and officials alike are scrambling to adjust to swiftly evolving trade policies. I would call it chaos. And we'll talk about that again. Shoppers are also facing some new surcharges. A growing number of companies are adding tariff surcharges to customers' bills, citing costs from the Trump administration's trade policy, according to the Wall Street Journal. We saw this coming. We've been talking about it for weeks now. From shower heads to toys, businesses are tacking on extra fees, sometimes as high as 40%, to help offset the steep tariffs on Chinese imports. And of course, those are rolling downhill to consumers. While these changes don't cover the full impact, some businesses and business owners say it's about being transparent. Reactions are mixed. Some appreciate the honesty, while others won't continue to worry that the politicians won't listen. And Tesla pulls its U.S.-made orders in China. Tesla is no longer taking orders in China for 2 U.S.-made car models amid an escalating trade between the two countries. While the Model S sedan and the Model X Sport utility vehicle represent just a fraction of Tesla's sales in China, their removal adds to the company's already precarious position in the country as it loses market share to local rival BYD. Rural towns already are feeling a decline. What does that mean? American towns along the Canadian border are already feeling an intense financial squeeze from Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs, and they could see a recession sooner than it predicted, according to The Atlantic. It notes one dairy farm in upstate New York was hit with an additional $2,200 tab because its feeds came from Canada, and by one of its tens of thousands of businesses that have been affected. To survive, these businesses are increasing prices, freezing hiring, and laying people off or delaying improvement plans. And I guess on an up note, since those were all not the best and the brightest of information, but truth, just days after the Trump administration threatened tariffs on drug imports, Novartis announced a $23 billion investment in the U.S. over the next 5 years. The company plans to build 6 new plants, with 2 slated for Florida and Texas, and a research center in San Diego. While tariffs played a role, Novartis says its main goal is to produce all U.S. drugs that are sold domestically. Meanwhile, companies like AstraZeneca chairman Mike DeMare says that the pharmaceuticals industry should be exempt from tariffs, warning they would ultimately harm patients. You think? So, a couple of Choose Views news items this morning. We'll take a quick break, and the number is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
Advertisement sponsored by Allied Injury Group, not available in all states. This important message from Allied Injury Group reminds you that if you or someone you love was injured in an accident that wasn't your fault, you deserve financial compensation for your medical expenses, lost wages, pain, and suffering. Don't rely on insurance companies to look out for you. If you haven't spoken to an attorney, call our legal experts now. Work accident, truck accident, collision with an uninsured driver, or a slip and fall. Allied Injury Group has helped clients win hundreds of millions of dollars in damages. They're available 24/7 to take your call and fight for you. Remember, if you or someone you love suffered injuries in an accident that wasn't your fault, like being struck by a drunk driver, a collision with an 18-wheeler, were a victim of workplace negligence or more, get the financial compensation you deserve. Call Allied Injury Group for a free consultation now.
Call 800-818-2581. That's 800-818-2581. Again, 800-818-2581.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
Good morning. You're waking up with Richard Chew.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
We're live and ready to hear from you. Text or call us now at 773-763-9278. Same number. Simple as that. Let's get the conversation going on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, Progressives, welcome back to Choose Views. If you're having challenges seeing us on the feed, we're going to take care of that. Devin's going to pop his roller skates on and roll around the studio and the station to make sure we get that squared away. So bear with us in that space. Okay, so good to be back, as I said, and always good to have a couple of days to recharge, which I was able to do. And shout outs to my wonderful wife for some great time away, and to some friends of ours that we had a chance to visit, Rick and Jim. Appreciate you guys tolerating us for a few days. And as I said, thanks to Michelle for being here to fill in for the few days that I was away. And so a little pivot to, you don't have to be a sports fan to have probably heard by now, or if you are a golf fan or a sports fan, the phenomenal achievement by golfer Rory McIlroy and shout out to him and his team and his family and all for his success in achieving what is rarefied air in sports, period. And the connection I'm going to make, you'll see in a moment. But what he accomplished yesterday is putting him in the history books in sports for the rest of his life and many others. It was a great accomplishment, and there were so many pieces of this that you can kind of tie into our conversations that we have here on Choose Views. The sports world really benefited from seeing that yesterday. The golf world particularly. And as I said, rarefied air that Rory is in. There are only 6 male golfers who've accomplished this. And to do it takes an incredible amount. It takes some time. And it also takes an incredible amount of dedication to your craft and dedication to all that makes someone's passion come to life. And so I want to give a shout out to Rory and just let him know that as a fan of golf, but more broadly a fan of sports, that was great for the sports world yesterday. And you don't have to be a fan of golf to understand what I'm talking about. On a non-golf level, what I also wanted to speak to is the way in which golf is often viewed as an elitist sport, and in some cases that's probably not an inaccurate label. But what I found to be particularly human about it and non-elitist is, this is not a golfer who, came into golf with the silver spoon and the country club and all that stuff. His mom and dad worked different jobs, couple jobs, midnight shifts, the whole nine. They represent that what we talk about here, that sort of middle class, hardworking, family that we all are part of in one way or another across the globe, not just here in the United States of America. And they did all the things that needed to be done in their mind to help their son get to a level where he could, prosper in the sport. And obviously during the interview, post round interview, the most touching part of it all was that, he gave the most impassioned shout out to his mother and father for all the things that they did to get him to the point where he could accomplish this. So for me, the connective piece is, we honor our parents as best we can, and we honor our families and those around us as best we can. So make sure you do that. Make sure you press pause and, give shout out to the people in your life that you care about and that have helped be a platform or shoulders that you stand on to get you to the point that you are in your lives. And we as a country right now, I said to my wife after it was over, I said, I think in a lot of ways, the country kind of needed a bright spot yesterday. And they needed to see something that, we could all come together on. Now, I get it. There's folks out there that say a variety of different things about golf. I get that. But I was, peeling back a part of my brain and saying, what is it that we can take from that? And that is, the ability to come together for something like that. And so, I'm a golfer. I love golf and appreciate the sport. But I also appreciate the way in which something like that can pull folks together. Now, we know that we've got some work to do as progressive liberal Democrats, and we've got some work to do to make sure we pull our team together and we make sure that our team has, we find our way and we keep moving forward, because without it, we have to deal with this Trump chaos. We're going to have to deal with it, but we're going to deal with it in a way that's not connected. And that's what I want to see our team do is to come together and find a way to fight this chaos in a meaningful way that's going to allow us to win. And wins are sometimes, they may come in small doses at this point. And that's one of the notes that I made to myself, that the wins right now may come in small doses, and we can't look past them only thinking about the big prize. The big prize is taking back the White House, taking back the House of Representatives, taking back the Senate, and making sure we stand strong with state legislatures and governors' mansions, as I said a lot last year, leading up to the convention and leading up to the election. We didn't do that in terms of the House, the Senate, and the White House, but we did see some major wins in state legislatures. So we have to keep moving down that path. And I think that for us to not come together for that effort would be, problematic. And when I say the big prize, and by comparison to the smaller wins, we're going to have a lot of smaller wins. And I think what we have to try to do in that space, yes, I agree. The big prize is taking back the country, and we may have to do that in an incremental way right now. So the link I'm making to golf is it's a hole by hole sport, and right now, and even this tournament went to a playoff. So there's a lot that we can draw from that. We've got to win. We got to take our incremental wins right now. We win a state legislative seat. That's a win for us. We win a judgeship like we did up in Wisconsin. That's a win for us, because what the opposition is trying to do is suck the air and the life and the energy out of our party and, in essence, out of our country. We're the heart and soul of this country, not the maggots, not the folks on the right, not even the ones in the center. We're the heart and soul of this country. We truly are. So every win that we get, we have to cherish it and use that as a platform, a building block, a stepping stone, whatever you want to use to get to the next. And that's the parallel I wanted to draw, the dotted line, if you will, to Rory's victory, is that it's a step-by-step process right now. We're not the losing team. We're just the team that didn't get the win that we wanted. So let's focus on the small wins. And I'll be honest with you guys, a small win can literally be us showing up at a rally, us showing up at events that are going to promote our way of thinking, our ideas, our policies. As going back again to David Jolly, they're better for more people. So we have to take each win as an incremental step to winning back the prize, the big prize, which is taking back our country, because we are the heart and soul of the country. There's no question in my mind about that. We've proven it time and time again, and this is our opportunity to do that once again. Because I don't see anybody saying that they're going that with any real what's the word I want to say? We aren't going to fold up our tents. Let's put it that way. I had to think of a different way to say that. We have to make sure that we keep our tents propped up and that we're welcoming more people into the tent. I saw this statistic yesterday, and it's not an old statistic, but it's one from the election about the percentage of people that didn't vote. And so our opportunity right now for the progressive liberal democratic conversation is that we have to be willing to reach to the people that did not vote. We have to find ways to connect with them, and we use our social media voices to do that. That's one way, but we most certainly know that that's really where the cream is in that group of people that did not vote. If we can get those people back in the mix, I think that's where we really have the opportunity to win. Incremental wins and then to win back the country. It's the big prize, and we will get it back, but we just have to stay focused. And some of it, this is, some people think I'm crazy when I say this, but the long-term win isn't, it's not impossible. It's possible because we know that we can get these shorter wins or these closer wins. And we can't wait for the midterms. We have to take on these current smaller or local elections and state elections, because that's part of what's going to keep us in the mix, as much as pushing back on what's happening from the Trump administration. So I know it's work; it's a lot to put into the mix, but I promise you this: that like generations before us, if we fight for this, then it's something that we can actually win, and we will. I'll do my part here to keep you guys as focused as possible. We're not going to get everything right in that space, but we will keep you guys focused on how we get to the wins. So we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll grab a couple of quick calls. The number is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
All right, progressives, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. All right, enough of that nice talk, Devin. Let's throw some flames. The Trump medical. Okay, let me put that, press pause on that for a second. Let's all send some good vibes to Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania. I mean, that's in my notes. I didn't want to just run over and not talk about that. That he's safe, that his family's safe, and that there were people who were able to step up and make sure that safety was preserved and the mansion was preserved to the best of its ability. I saw some of the pictures, and that just stinks. And without being without saying some words I can't say and causing Devin to have to jump out of his seat, there is absolutely zero reason to do that. And I don't care who the person is, what their culture or community is, where they come from, period, end. There is zero acceptability for that. None. And I'm going to talk a little bit probably with Sarah about this later. But Pam Bondi and Donald Trump went ballistic, as did Elon, over dealerships being, threatened, and some put set a fire. I haven't heard a peep from them yet about this being a terrorist act, this being a hate crime, or any of that. This is the governor of a state of millions of people, an elected official, and the president. I haven't heard any public statement yet. And believe me, if there had been, it would have been aired. So that tends to tell me that there hasn't been. And the attorney general hasn't stepped up. Now, I'm not surprised. So don't think I'm in la la land on this. I'm not surprised that it hasn't happened. I'm just saying that it hasn't happened, and that there wasn't a press conference where Donald Trump or the AG said, "Hey, let's let the public know that we don't tolerate this." But let a Tesla dealership have some issues, and they're kissing Elon's boots and wiping the boogers off the desk. So there's your president, MAGA. Let something happen to someone that's not with their head up his behind, and crickets. So we'll talk a little bit more about that when Sarah's on. But speaking of the Orange Menace, I have a tough time believing his medical report, Devin. I'm just at 6'2", and I know how much I weigh, and I look a lot different than Donald Trump does. And I know they say that the cameras add a few pounds. Now the other parts about his systolics and his functional parts of his medical that they released, okay, I won't challenge that, because there's people who are super thin but can have high blood pressure, can have a diabetic disorder, they can have cholesterol issues. We know all that. So not everybody that has high blood pressure, a cholesterol issue, or diabetes, which are typically the big three that are looked at with when you have a physical done, for most of us, and any other screenings that we go through. That weight isn't always the determining factor. We know that. But my eyes don't lie to me. My eyes are still pretty doggone good. And if they say that the camera puts 10 pounds on you, okay. But I know what I look like at the height that I'm at and what I weigh. And I know that that's not what Donald Trump looks like at the purported height that he is in relationship to his weight. My eyes don't lie to me there. And so we know that he's prone to lying. We've got evidence of it across the board. I don't care about that part in terms of him lying about that, if he were to lie about it. What I care about is that the doctors around him are throwing us this garbage, are trying to get us to think through some medical report that's even close to being accurate. And then you come back to the fact that the White House is furthering this narrative. If it's none of our business, then don't make it our business. If you don't want anybody to talk about it, then don't put it out there for us to talk about. But this weight thing and this height, it's all about the myth of Donald Trump being this sort of superhuman, perfect man, perfect specimen for people to, genuflect to. And that's not the case. And you can see it in all the pictures and, pictures that were 2 years ago, a year ago, and 2 months ago. Those numbers are not accurate. And that's where and why when the people that are associating themselves or attaching themselves to MAGA, if you will, and others in the Republican Party, the GOP that are tying themselves to this lie, you can't trust it, and you shouldn't trust it, and we should push back on it, because why do you need to lie about the weight? I think there'd be more people endeared to the fact that, I'm a few pounds overweight, and I'm, dealing with these things like the rest of this is where and why the folks that are out there are in a cult that follow this. Because wouldn't you rather be told the truth and then align yourself with that? Like, I'm 10 pounds overweight, and, I got a little this and a little bit of that. But like so many of you, that's how we are as human beings. We deal with those things. But no, they'd rather be lied to that the truth is fiction and fiction is the truth. So my notes said Trump's medical, so let's talk about it. But let's grab a couple quick calls. Let's go to our good friend Kurt in Akron. Good morning, Kurt. How are you this morning?
Oh, good morning, Richard, and I'm glad you had some time off.
Thank you.
What is time off?
I don't know.
but anyway, first of all, it is our business to know the health of the president because he's an old man. Yeah. I'm going to say it, guys. He's old.
Yep.
Trump old. Trump old. Trump old. Trump old. I'm putting it in their heads. Trump's old.
And there's nothing wrong with we all want to get older and be as healthy as we can as we get older. But anyhow, go ahead, Kurt.
Well, anyway, Saturday, Hal Sparks was talking about these Trump tariffs and how certain companies are now going to start putting it on a receipt showing why you're paying more, and it's going to say on the receipt Trump tariff, which put me in mind to those stickers that maggots put on gas pumps when gas was, $11 billion a gallon, and they had Joe Biden pointing to it saying, I did that.
Yeah.
So about time people start seeing it in their face and seeing something tangible of what Trump is doing to them. And then the other thing is I sent a clip of Bill Maher's monologue of meeting with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I don't buy his graciousness. I don't buy that graciousness garbage that Trump showed to Bill Maher. That just, to me, shows you what a sociopath and narcissist Donald Trump really is. He knows how to turn it on, and he knows how to turn it off in public and in private. And if it's true that he is that gracious, why is he not doing that in public? Why does he have to have that persona of being the big tough guy instead of someone who's actually working for the people? Because after all, he got into a job that is the greatest public service job in the country, if not the world.
They are, I guess, how do you want to put it? Donald Trump is good at performative communication.
He's a phony.
He's good at making the person that's in front of them, if they're susceptible to it, feel good. And if you buy into it, then that is a win for Donald Trump. And a good example of someone that didn't buy into it is two people that come to mind because of something that Trump does when he greets them. He greets them with that handshake where he tries to pull the person into him. Yep. And it's a thing that it's an old technique, and so Vice President Harris in the debate, Trump tried to do that, but she knew it was coming, so she made sure that she turned his hand so he wouldn't be able to do it.
And he was cornered like a dog.
Absolutely.
Not to insult dogs or anything, but he was cornered let's say he was cornered like a caged animal.
The other person that did it well was, in as much as I've been on him for his podcast, is Governor Gavin Newsom. Governor Newsom did the same thing at the when Trump landed at the airport, the airfield. Newsom knew that it was coming, and he prepared himself for it. But the point I'm making to compliment what you're saying, Kurt, is that Trump is a good performative communicator. He's good at letting people or people who are susceptible to needing to be made to feel good. He's good at that, and he sees it. And he when he sees that and it's a weakness, he pounces on it with people, and that's what happened. Bill Maher got punked. Bill Maher got bent over the barrel because now Bill's going to come out and do exactly what he did, which is to tell everybody, "Oh, it was wonderful. He was a great," But the difference is, if he had had an interview with Barack Obama,
it would have been the same thing, but he wouldn't have said it.
But exactly, and he would have talked about, he's stiff and he's this and he's that, and I couldn't.
He wore a tan suit, or let's make it more modern. Let's say Joe Biden. Joe Biden would have been gracious to him. Oh, but Joe Biden, he stuttered. He walks slow. He looks like an old man. This, that. He couldn't eat his mashed potatoes or tie his shoes.
Yeah.
So
so this comes back to this whole thing around. I don't want to wreck a clip that we're going to play in a moment about the silence from people who are supposed leaders, and how they're if you are about standing on business, then you should not be afraid of the president of the United States, because if you hold a certain amount of strength and character, then you should be able to look at him and say, I believe, this is me saying this now, bring what you got, because, I didn't get here for free. I paid my dues to get here as a corporate leader, and we're not seeing that right now. And if these numbers of law firms that are kind of doing the same thing that Bill Maher did, which is genuflecting, it's like, come on, guys and gals, but mostly guys and I think that what Trump probably recognizes is that these guys, they themselves, like him, aren't as strong and as stout and as worthy as they've led so many people to believe. And I mean, how are you as a billionaire worth more than him going to kowtow to him when you have a mechanism, Meta, to every single day create havoc for the dude and gain so much more respect from the public, Meta, by not kowtowing to him? But here we are. So, Kurt, good to have you with us. I don't know if you cut out. Is Kurt still there? He is? Uh-oh. I don't know what happened, Kurt. We lost you. All right. Sorry about that, guys. We lost Kurt. We're going to take a quick break. Let's go to break. 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
It's Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, guys. Welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Make sure to stay tuned for our WCPT Progressive lineup. The Stephanie Miller Show, my radio sister on the West Coast. The Tom Hartman Show, professor of everything progressive. Of course, Joan Esposito, live, local and progressive. And Patty Vasquez, my bookend that's driving you home. Daily here, Monday through Fridays, our progressive lineup on WCPT. Make sure to stay plugged into those wonderful folks. And yes, as we were saying during the commercial break, although the tickets are sold out for the May 3rd anniversary broadcast at Max and Benny's restaurant, we hope you'll tune in that day between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. to hear us. Hal Sparks, Patty Vasquez, Scott Duff, Joan Esposito, and me broadcast live with our special guest. This event is sponsored by Max and Benny's, Fazio Insurance, Smart 365, the Democratic Party of Kane County, and Southland's Friends of Labor, Democratic Party of McHenry County, and McHenry County Democratic Women. Make sure to visit our anniversary page. Got some good stuff there, guys. Got to do it. And you can check out my show page as well. If you missed any of our shows, you can you can go to heartlandsignal.com visit Choose Views show page and get the rundown on what guests are joining me on the show for the current week and listen on demand to recent interviews and full episodes of the show. Go to theheartlandsignal.com and click on my picture. That's what you can do. Speaking of stuff to listen to, we've got a couple of very, very good clips that Devin and I put together that I think will speak loudly to this current conversation. And when we were talking with Kurt about the way in which MAGA is just falling in line, the way in which people are not, having the courage to speak out. We've got this clip that I think you guys will help you understand more of what we're talking about. Stephanie Ruhle from MSNBC really leans into this conversation.
My years working on Wall Street and then covering Wall Street, have I spent a weekend speaking privately to so many major investors and C-suite executives about a single event, each one with extremely strong views and major stakes, each person desperately looking for any answers or clues or clarity. And there was one thing they were all looking for: hope, because underneath they actually believe in the strength of the economy. But what they didn't get was clarity, not from Trump's team on TV yesterday or today, or from Trump himself. Take a look.
When do you think the market might turn around?
It's finding a bottom now. What
I've been very impressed with is the market infrastructure, that we had record volume on Friday, and everything is working very smoothly.
Our country was the strongest, believe it or not, from 1870 to 1913. You know why? It was all tariff-based. We had no income tax.
There's going to be plenty of jobs for robots, plenty of jobs for humans. I'm telling you, Laura, this is going to be a golden age.
And let's be clear, we created income tax in 1913 so wealthy people would pay it because the tariffs were strangling the poor and the middle class. And as for Scott Bessent being happy that the market worked on Friday, I don't even know what to say. But you know what we didn't get? Almost any of the big CEOs standing up and speaking out. While they know exactly the risks ahead, their risk models have calculated that the risk of speaking publicly and saying anything that could upset the president is greater. And that silence is deafening. It shows that a fear of the president's wrath and a loss of trust in the rule of law, and if businesses or foreign countries cannot trust our leadership, I can promise you the cost will be far greater and longer lasting than the market losses we've seen in the last few days.
So that's what I was speaking to with Kurt a moment ago, is where's the strength of these CEOs? I've been saying this for weeks now. The CEO class who receives so many benefits and breaks, and many will say outsized, oversized, unnecessary forms of compensation, know for a fact that the tariffs are going to cause harm, have already caused harm, anticipatory harm to their companies, particularly if they're publicly traded. They know that this is affecting their company's value. They know that it's affecting their retirement plans and pension plans and all the rest that's value-based measurements of their company. But yet they're silent. They're not speaking up en masse to a point where we would know about it and hear about it. These are the kinds of things that I ask of folks who are in leadership roles, whether they be elected officials or they be, in this case, I'm talking about CEOs in alignment with what Stephanie Ruhle was saying. You guys, and I mean this collectively, you individuals, you folks, you companies have a lot of power. Wield it. How many times do we, and I guess sometimes I go back to this, the importance of visuals. If corporate CEOs who know that this back and forth chaos with Trump's tariffs, they're not American tariffs. As I've said a number of times and will continue to say, these are Trump's tariffs. He owns these. Where are the CEOs, the C-suite individuals, coming together collectively to create a visual standing somewhere, on Wall Street, but in a venue that says to the country, hold a press conference and say, these tariffs used in the manner in which they are reckless and harmful, and the president needs to stop. where are those voices? And here's the challenge. Maybe not the challenge, but here's maybe the problem that a lot of people are saying is that you can't get all these CEOs to agree on that. Well, there's been enough. There doesn't have to be every CEO of the Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000. Where is and maybe it takes an ask from someone like Ken Martin, who is the head of the DNC, to go to these CEOs and say, listen, we need you guys to back us up in Congress as to the reality of and the fact that these tariffs are harmful to our economy. Real time, not down the road going to be harmful, but have been right now. And the proof in the pudding that the tariffs are not working and never were going to work, but are purely about retribution and causing chaos, is what happened from the end of the day on Wednesday to the end of the day on Friday of last week. The announcement of the tariffs, wrecking ball. Tariffs are paused, a little bit of stability. So it proves that the tariffs as a tool are hurtful. They're not helpful, because if they were helpful, then you wouldn't have seen the markets take the dive that they took. But more importantly, the pause showed that taking the tariffs off or pausing the tariffs allowed the markets to stabilize. That's a fact. You don't have to believe me. Look at the data. Look at the evidence. And it's not anecdotal, but that's what actually happened. And I was watching this while away going, this is why people have got to pay attention, and why we all have to be willing to push the elected officials and, frankly, business leaders. It's not just the elected officials now, guys. And this is the thing that I've been anticipating was going to come our way. And Stephanie Rule says it best. The CEO silence is deafening. The CEOs have got to take the position. As if you were standing in front of, as a CEO, standing in front of at the podium or on the dais at a shareholder meeting, just as people who show up at town halls are getting after the elected officials, as a shareholder of a specific company, if you show up at a shareholders meeting, you should be screaming just as loudly at the CEOs or the C-suite people on that stage or that dais about why they're not stepping up and calling for Donald Trump to walk away from the tariffs. It's not a tool that's going to be effective right now, and it's been proven by how unstable the markets have been. So when I talk about, and you've heard me say this numbers of times or ask for this numbers of times, that we have to keep showing up at the town halls and we have to keep pushing the elected officials. Well, doggone it, if you're a shareholder of a particular company, then show up there as well. And if there's not a shareholders meeting coming your way soon, then the other power that you have is to let that CEO, that C-suite person or persons know that this is crazy and where are their voices. And I'll give you guys kind of a way of looking at this maybe a little bit differently. If you have a retirement plan through the company, then if you have a retirement plan through a company that you work for, then you are an indirect shareholder or a entity. You are an individual that has interest in the entity. So you have just as much right as anybody else that may be a direct shareholder of a particular company to write the CEO of your firm and let him or her know, or the C-suite people of your firm, that this is unacceptable. What they can exactly do, what they can exactly enact is and use is their voice. And this is why I wanted to try to take a little bit of a deeper dive with what Stephanie Rule was talking about. This silence from the CEOs is just unacceptable, guys. And I feel right now that any product that we use, any product that we spend any money on whatsoever, we've got to be willing to reach out to those companies if they're not stepping up and saying to Donald Trump that this has to we have to pull away from the tariffs. Then they're not doing their job. And we have to push them to do their jobs as the leaders of these companies that we spend our money with. It's just, I talk about all players means all players. Well, all tools means all tools. And that's one of them that I believe we have to lean into a little bit more firmly and more readily and more regularly. So it's break time, guys. We're going to take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. When we come back, we will be with our good friend Sarah. Sarah Jones from Politicus USA. She's going to be with us in the 7 o'clock hour. 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that will focus on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Hey, progressives, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Great to be back with you. Yeah, I was beefing about what CEOs should be doing, leaders of companies that are companies that we spend money on, whether it be produce items, whether it be day-to-day items that we, clothing, the list goes on. Just every CEO that says and believes that they really give a darn about the country should be upset and should be pushing back. And I say every CEO because the tariffs may impact one business better than the other, but at the end of the day, it's impacting the country in a negative way. And the end game, there is no end game in sight or that's been stated with any cogency that we can all believe in. But I have somebody else that's going to speak to this and ride along with me in this crazy car this morning, and that would be the co-founder and just a wonderful leader in this space, in this conversation, managing editor and co-publisher, I should say, at Politicus USA, and that would be me welcoming to the show Sarah Jones. Good morning, Sarah. Welcome to Choose Views.
So glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Good to be with you this morning. Glad to have you back, and good to hear your voice. A lot's gone on in the past 2 weeks since we had you on the show, and you've been writing up a storm about all that's happening.
You know what? I think I've forgotten more than has happened because it's typical Trump, right? It's chaos, confusion, reversals, and destruction.
Yeah, and
it's absolutely
crazy, and the word chaos keeps coming back. You wrote an article, as you've written so many wonderful pieces in on a daily basis, but you wrote an article, and I talked about this a little bit earlier in the show, about how Pam Bondi and Trump have basically gone silent or been silent regarding this fire to Governor Josh Shapiro's residence. And, by comparison to what happened with some of the Tesla dealerships been set ablaze and all that's happened, they were very outspoken in that space, but they've been crickets in the space of a governor, an elected official of one of the largest, most populated states in the country, that their life was put at risk, but yet the president and the attorney general have seemingly nothing to say about that.
Yeah, it's very troubling because I think everyone expects this kind of thing from him at this point, where he politicizes everything, including life-threatening. He did it during COVID. This is what he does. He's like Josh Shapiro refused to. Josh Shapiro endorsed the hands-off protest. He refused to comply with their efforts to kill diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in schools. And so Donald Trump doesn't like Josh Shapiro, and so Josh Shapiro's life and his family's life and his children's life means nothing to Donald Trump. That's who he is. And I think maybe if he registered himself as a Tesla or they owned a Tesla, maybe then the administration would care. But it's really, we saw this during COVID, and I just still cannot believe that voters thought that we should go back to this. That always, every time something like this happens, I just keep thinking, did no one remember what he did during COVID, how he, withheld life-saving things from certain states as a retribution? That's who he is.
Well, right here in the state of Illinois, our own Governor Pritzker has spoken to that on a number of occasions, where not only did they hold back, but what was then sent were devices that were non-functional, and the governor had to what would I say that they had to go out and get their own equipment that was working to be able to provide the safety elements that were needed to residents and citizens of the state of Illinois. And so, it just goes to show the cravenness of this president. Let me ask you your thoughts about this conversation around Trump's health report and what you have seen and been reporting on in that space.
Well, Donald Trump is very good at propaganda, as I think we all know. And so, this time around, they didn't use some random doctor that no one could find. But so I guess we're supposed to be impressed by that. But the things that they put forth, the wording is always questionable. And when you look at what they put forth, they're saying what a great job he's done at winning at golf, and that this proves how healthy he is. And of course, that is not true. Riding around in a golf cart and then taking a swing, we don't even know if he actually wins these games. Like, all of this is told to us in these stories from people who are unreliable narrators. So I think what's really weird, and I know you're going to, like, we should talk about this, like, what happened with the media? Do you remember in the election, like the whole year leading up to the 2024 election, how the media kept telling us that Joe Biden had cognitive issues because they spotted a neurologist coming to the White House, and it turned out he was doing clinics for veterans at the White House that they've been doing forever. But no one is saying a word about this man who doesn't even make sense. He doesn't even know what's going on. They'll ask him a question about something that his administration has just done, and he won't even know what that is.
Well, and remember, Sarah, wasn't it a week before last where there was an event that was held at the White House on one of the lawns, and it was for Trump to sign one of his executive orders, and he was more enthralled with waving and glad handing and talking to people, and then he damn near forgot. Well, he did forget that he was what he was there to sign, and he walked away, and they had to catch him and redirect him back to where he was supposed to sign this executive order. And so, but the point you're making is the mainstream media isn't jumping on that and making it an entire news cycle. But if former President Biden happens to have a doctor come to do what they are doing to help other members of the staff, it's suddenly that we're hiding Biden's cognitive issues. And so the mainstream media, and a lot of people don't want to, they want to get away from talking about what the mainstream media is not doing, when in fact the mainstream media has become a tool of this administration. It was a tool in the previous administration, the previous term of Trump, and it's become a tool yet once again. And they're not calling themselves out because they know that if they do, that they're probably going to lose some favor with this White House.
It's absolutely become a tool, and that's why it's important. And I too, am fed up with them, and I don't like thinking about it because, frankly, it makes me so angry that people that are in my profession, a lot of people that I looked up to are behaving this way. And that has been I'm still grieving this kind of massive loss of ethics and basic principles that we are seeing. But here's just an example. Like, it's not even just that they're going along with it to get favor from him, right? And that's like this oligarchical structure that they are allowing themselves to be a tool of. And then when I look at why they would rather have Trump in the White House, was it his chaos because he brings so many new eyeballs to the media? Or is it that Joe Biden was doing all these regulatory things? Like, remember, Trump just rolled back the Biden-era rule that limited bank overdraft fees to $5.
Right.
And it's things like that, right, that helped everyday people. And the media doesn't seem to care about those things. In fact, I would say they're almost on the other side of it. So to them, someone like Trump, who's taking away all the regulations, is the hero. So they're going to give him all of this leeway on his cognitive issues that we can all see. And I think they're gaslighting the American public when they present him. Like, talk about the tariffs that you were talking about before I came on, and the way that you were talking about these CEOs and how they've been negligent in their duty as Americans. People who benefit from the American system, they benefit from our tax dollars every day. They use the infrastructure that we all pay for. And a lot of them don't even pay the taxes that they should, as we all know. But those people are silent. They're enabling all of this. And the media is part of that. That's what they have become. They're the big mega conglomerates. And so they benefit the most when they have someone like Donald Trump in office who, lets them get as big as they want to be, as long as they at some moments, they sound like Russian state TV now.
Yeah, and you have a direct, I guess you say, direct link into that space because you've been a part of it and you know what should be happening versus what is actually happening right now. And even in this conversation, Sarah Brown, the raising prices on prescription drugs, and I want to get your take on what you think is going to happen in that space and where you see us going there.
Well, I think that's what Donald Trump does is he makes all these announcements, then he walks them back, and then he makes them again. And then he walks them back again. We just saw this weekend about the tariffs in a variety of ways on electronics and smartphones. Like, first they said, yeah, that's going in. Then he had people out on all the TV shows, no. And then, that is going in. Then Trump said that was fake news. And then they walk it back again. So this is what he does about everything. So now he's saying this about drug prices. But we all know what's going to happen next is the drug companies are going to flip out when they see any of this impacting them. And then they're going to have to find a way to convey that to Donald Trump. Will he take that feedback? I don't know. I mean, one of the things that we see Republicans thinking about, but not having the courage to confront Trump with, is that a lot of their supporters are older people who are on Social Security, who are on Medicare, and who do have a number of prescriptions that would be impacted. And they see that that's eroding their own support.
Yeah.
But they don't, right? But they don't seem to have the courage. And like you're talking about these CEOs, they also don't have the courage to tell Trump this stuff to his face. So they try these roundabout ways of announcing layoffs, publicly after the tariffs. That's how they're conveying information to him. And as we all saw with the tariffs, it wasn't until the bonds were being sold off that the whole market looked like it was going to melt down, and an economic system, the value of the U.S. dollar, was going to implode. That he finally, people yanked his chain enough that he did something to respond. And so people they talk about him as if he has these ideas about tariffs. So I try to, even though I have a very difficult time believing that he has political ideas, really, because he's such a shapeshifter. And he's really his only ideology seems to be enriching himself. That seems to be the one driving force, and to turn America into kind of a Russian or a Hungarian, the oligarchs and kind of an autocracy instead of a democracy. So, but I investigated where they claim his tariff ideas are coming from and what he supposedly believes. That a lot of Republicans, according to polls, actually think it's happening. So they think he's bringing jobs back with these tariffs, but he is not doing anything to reindustrialize the United States. So if you're going to put tariffs like this, first of all, this isn't the way that you would do that. But secondly, if it were some feasible road to that, then you would also be having this industrialization policy. You would be doing what Joe Biden did, actually, of creating all these jobs. Like former President Joe Biden worked with all these private companies to create a lot of manufacturing jobs here in the United States. And so those are the things you would see Trump doing if he actually was trying to create jobs.
Well,
but it looks like he...
To that point, Sarah, to that point, and you wrote about this in terms of, companies can't, pick up a factory and move it to the United States. It takes time to I reported on this earlier where, there are companies, there's, let me grab this exact, a bit of information that Novartis is planning on building 6 new U.S. plants, but they know that they're not going to build them immediately. And they're not going to be ready immediately and operational and all the other benefits that come from that. And a lot of the folks that are part of MAGA, and even now it seems like much of the GOP, seems to think that if Trump says we're going to drop these tariffs on other countries, that's going to have an immediate impact on jobs coming back to the United States or companies coming back to the United States or reducing the cost of doing business with other countries. And it's not. The only thing that it's consistently, without any opinion, factually causing is chaos in our financial markets and companies that are responding with, we're going to have to lay people off. And in many cases, the jobs that are being impacted are held by people that are voters that vote for the GOP, that vote for MAGA. But they don't seem to want to learn that this is not a strategy that's going to move us forward. And I mean, you even talked about this in one of your articles about companies can't just pick up a factory and place it someplace else. It takes time. It does take that time. And Biden was headed down that path because he was offering, tax incentives to companies and ways in which they could immediately not immediately, but in a lesser period, but defined period of time, say, this is what this tax break will do for this company, and this is how it's going to affect their hiring. And this is not the case right now with Trump.
He has done nothing about that. And if that doesn't reveal his true motives, then I don't know what will. I mean, remember what he did after the market plunged and then they came back, and he said something about he pointed to people in the Oval Office with him. He made $2.5 billion today, and he made $900 million. That's not bad.
Yeah.
And that is how he sees all of this, right? It's all about making money for himself and the people who are loyal to him, and the rest of us, including the people who vote for him, he doesn't care about. And I think even when you look at the SAVE Act, that the Voting Restriction Act, that I see a lot of people framing that as something that's really going to harm women, and that's true. But really it's aimed at people who don't have a lot of money.
Yep.
So it's yet another attack on people who don't have money, right? Because who cannot get a passport? Who doesn't have time to take a whole day off of work, to take a bus, to go get all the documents they need to be able to vote if they have to vote with a passport?
And that's that's the other side of it. I talked about this a few weeks ago, and you wrote about it, how it's an attack on democracy by taking away from the people who need it the most the tool that they need the most to affect democracy, and that's the ability to vote, the ability to participate in the democracy. And so I don't know why there are not more people who are screaming more loudly that are regular everyday voters at this particular bit of legislation. It's only going to help those who are in states, or I shouldn't say that in states, but are in areas where they've already got a lock on voting. And this is another voter suppression tool. And you've written eloquently about how this is going to harm so many people in that particular category.
I just saw a poll, and I think it was like 80% of Republicans think that his tariffs are going to bring jobs here and that they're really going to help the economy. And it is literally doing the opposite to the economy. Like, I think if someone were to ask me my complete opinion, this is not based on facts, but my complete opinion about what Trump is doing, I would have to say that he is trying to destroy a lot of the pieces that make the United States, that have made the United States the superpower that it was. And why is he doing that? I really couldn't say. Is he doing it on purpose? I don't know. But if you just look at what he's doing, that is what he's accomplishing. He's done it with these tariffs, and he's doing it, this isolationist policy, his siding up with Russia. That is what he is undermining the United States, and we see Europe and Canada working together to cut the United States out of their supply chains and their responses to attacks on global democracy, because they know they can't trust the United States. And that's really what his tariffs did. They undermined the trust and the respect that people all the countries around the globe had in the United States economy. And I don't think there's a more effective way to destroy a country than to do that.
Well, and also, Sarah, the connections that we've had with our biggest and strongest allies. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, one of the leaders from the UK and another from Canada, to your point, said openly, we are no longer going to position ourselves as being not dependent on the United States, but even confident that the United States right now will be a partner when it comes to any global issue, and not just issues of military fighting or military movements by other countries. There's no feeling from them, and you can see it, that they can trust the United States to be there. Now, when we talk about the economies, they also know that they can't trust the United States. And you kind of have to understand, if you were in their positions, why would you trust the United States right now? And that's not meant to be negative, but putting ourselves in the shoes of our allies, why would you trust us? Why would you have any faith that we were going to be there, not just for them in a military sense, but in a very practical, let's keep the peace on all spaces and places, economics, healthcare, our environment. The United States is, I like the word you use, isolationist, is pulling away from actually being a player in global security.
That's so well said, and that is exactly what I see happening. And I don't think that those voters, like for instance, that you're talking about, the MAGA voters, I don't think they care about that, and I don't think they understand what it means, because they have been slowly kind of indoctrinated to believe that the only country that matters is the United States. But the United States only matters globally because of its allies, because of these partnerships that, this country has spent so long building up. And those are they're not easy relationships all the time, but it takes all of these skilled negotiators to keep everyone at the table getting enough needs met that they continue to work together. And we see that Donald Trump operates the exact opposite. He comes in, he's like a wrecking ball, and he thinks that if he scares everybody and takes everything away from them and bullies people, that they're all going to succumb to them. But this time what they said was, oh, you want to bully us? Fine, we're not going to deal with you anymore. Here's retaliatory tariffs back on you, and we're going to go and we're going to try to partner around you. And there's even talk that some of the Europeans are working with China. What are they going to do? They're going to cut the United States out altogether.
And it's already happening. And one of the things that I think is concerning when we look at our financial markets, Sarah, is that, and this is a text that I got earlier, that as I spoke of last week, we saw that the pausing in the tariffs caused a little bit of stability, a little bit of recovery. But the phrase that was sent to me is that it's being referred to, that stock market short rebound, as a dead cat bounce. And I hadn't even heard that phrase, right? But that's the manipulation, to your point, going back to what you said when he was, I believe they were in the White House, if they were in the Oval Office, I can't remember. But he turned to one of the people there and said, yeah, you made $2.5 million and you made $900 million. First of all, that just goes to show the arrogance of saying it publicly like that, when there are people who voted for him that lost money during the same period of time. And so I would say, based on that conversation, that there is some market manipulation that's taken place. Knowing, and Sarah, you saw what Marjorie Greene posted, that how much she sold off and then purchased. So there's some market manipulation that's taking place. Specifically, what's happening, we don't know. But I will say that to the experts that I've been listening to, there's an edge of shorting the market that's going on, and that has gone on in these past 2 weeks.
Can you imagine if Democrats operated the way Republicans did, that all of those people would be accused immediately without any? We don't even need proof. We just know that you had been out here making some trades, and then we just accuse you of betting against America.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they would be saying if these were Democrats that were doing that, because that's literally what they've been doing. They're putting if those things are true. Now, we're going to find out, I guess it's May 15th. Their disclosures are due. I think that's the date. Of course, they may not even disclose anything. Who's going to hold them accountable? I think we're in such a weird landscape right now. And I'm really curious to get your thoughts about all these financial things, because I know that you're an expert in that area. And I was wondering what you thought about the United States. And this is not the way that I would like to see a democracy operate, but this is the way that this one has operated for a long time, where sort of the business elite and these large chunks of political elites, they have worked together and they were able to bully Americans to get whatever they wanted. I mean, I think during the Bush crash, we saw that it was the big banks bailed out. When you think about what's happening now, I've seen a lot of Trump supporters say, oh, well, he's standing up to those people. He's not going to be bullied by them. He's just doing what's best for us. But in fact, it looks like what's actually happening is he is not taking instructions from American business. That's a lot of times true, although I think that's ultimately why he backed down. But what he's trying to turn this into where he, as a president, it will be more like Russia, where he makes all of the policy. There's no input, certainly not from the people.
To kind of respond to that, and I know we're getting closer. We got to wrap up, but and thank you for the compliment about my financial acumen. I have been fortunate enough to work with some great people in that space, and I don't give financial advice to our listeners, but I will definitely respond to your question as to the why and the what. I'll tell you this, Sarah, and a lot of people are afraid, I believe, to say this, is that Trump wanted, and he said this during the campaign, he wanted to be in a position to have domain over the different departments of the federal government, and particularly the financial departments and the financial and have jurisdiction over what takes place when it comes to taxes, when it comes to tariffs, and when it comes to what? Interest rates. So there is, based on that and what's happening now, and then the DOJ not investigating what happened, and the SEC, he wanted also Trump to have domain over the SEC. There's clearly enough evidence where there are different folks in charge in the departments of the government, but also in terms of what's happening in Congress. If Congress were Democratic-led right now, there would be investigations. There's enough there. There's more. The old phrase, where there's smoke, there's fire. Without a doubt, we would see that if Congress were led by Democrats, because there's data that's there. There's data and information that's there. We'd be able to track what DOJ is doing if Congress were led by Democrats rather than Republicans. So it speaks to the importance, everybody, of making sure that we do take these small wins as wins, and we keep working toward flipping the House of Representatives. I know this next year and a half is going to be brutal in that space without having Congress, without having the House particularly. But yes, I do believe that there is a certain amount of evidence to show that there's manipulation that's gone on. And that's where we've got to dig in deep and force the hands of our elected officials to do more in that space. Sarah, it's great to have you with us, and I'll make a little announcement to everybody. Sarah's going to be with us every other week to bring her wonderful writing and brand and mind to our conversation and helping to make sure that all of our progressive liberal Democrats anywhere in the country can and take advantage of Sarah's knowledge and what Sarah does and all the work that she brings to what we do here. So I'm excited to have you be a part of the show, Sarah, and thank you so much for your willingness to get up early in the morning and have a little fireside chat with me here in Chicago. So we appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Rich. I am so honored that you asked, and I am really looking forward to hearing from your listeners who their engagement in this process was really invigorating for me. And so I'm really excited to be a part of this community that you have built. And to that end, just want to remind everybody, as you're talking about the upcoming elections, that this Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, there is a virtual meeting with the hands-off demonstrators, and they're going to be talking about what's next. So anybody who is interested in even hearing about what they're doing, that's going on. And I think you can Google where it is, but it's a virtual meeting so everybody can attend.
Fantastic. Thanks for being with us. Sarah Jones, managing editor and co-publisher at Politicus USA. Thanks for being with us this morning. Sarah, we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we may be chatting with one of our voices from Leaving MAGA. So we'll take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Great to have Sarah Jones with us this morning from Politicus USA, and great writing. You got to follow the work that she does, and we'll probably be posting some things on my show page regarding that, but great to have her with us. Along with other great guests that we have here on Choose Views. And this morning in particular, we will have back with us this morning, hasn't been with us for a couple of weeks, is our good friend over at Leaving MAGA. And that would be none other than Rich Logis, founder. Good morning, Rich. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Richard. Good to be back. Good morning to everyone.
Absolutely. Good to have you with us this morning. And as many of you guys may know, Rich Logis is the founder of Leaving MAGA, and you can take those words and apply to them what you will. But in the real world, it's about providing what I've said to Rich and many others is a bridge for those who were part of MAGA for whatever reasons and how they got there, and then their move from that to someplace else. And hopefully that someplace else is one where they can move forward and be part of the change that the country so desperately needs right now. And with us as a guest, and this is one of the things that Rich and I have talked about we want to be able to do. Rich and I can talk about it all day long, but it's good to have a person who is actually someone that became part of MAGA, that then found a new direction, found a new way, and was able to take advantage of the bridge that that Rich has created. And that would be Jason Riddle. Good morning, Jason, and welcome to Choose Views.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thanks for being with us. Rich, I guess I'll let you kind of introduce Jason. And then, Jason, what I'd like our listeners to hear is a little bit about your story and how you became part of MAGA and then what pulled you away from MAGA. So, Rich, a quick introduction if you can.
Credit and thank Jason for being with us. Jason was at January 6th. He was charged and imprisoned for his actions, which I know he'll get into. But he rejected the president's pardon, and he did so to take full responsibility for his actions on that day.
That's pretty powerful. There's other folks that have done took that same position, Jason. But take a moment if you can and tell us a little bit about your journey, I guess, is probably the best word that I can use to somewhat describe the process that you went through and have gone through and may still be going through.
Okay. Well, I became a Trump supporter when I was senior year in college, political science. during the 2016 campaign, that's when I started what turned into basically a habit of just driving around and going to Trump rallies. I went all over the country. I went up to Maine. Obviously on January 6th, we went down to D.C. and it was during college. I did this. It was with the same friend from college that I continued to go to the rallies, and I developed a lot of personal problems along the way. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I lost some jobs on the way. During that time, every time I'd lose a job, I'd go to another rally. It was sort of a coping mechanism, I suppose. And I'd actually just left the post office a couple weeks prior to January 6th when I joined my friend who I'd graduated from school with, who had also lost a couple jobs. And that's how I ended up at the Capitol riot. And where I was arrested, I raided a liquor cabinet in the Senate parliamentary room. And it was my arrest and my rehabilitation that just kind of ran counter to my lifestyle. And I embraced it. I'm really thankful for it. Corinne Hess is a federal probation officer. She forced sobriety on me, and that's when I quit drinking. And my life has gotten so much better since. And by the time Trump was pardoning all the Capitol rioters, it would be just such a lie and such an insult to that rehabilitation and to all the gifts that were given to me for being held accountable, which is why I rejected the pardon.
So I'll ask you this question. I mean, obviously, struggling with alcohol addiction is nothing new to any person in the country. We are 1 or 2 degrees of separation from knowing someone that has struggled with that and is fighting through it, and it's an ongoing fight. So I always say this to anyone that's going through any form of addiction or struggle health-wise or any disease is kudos to fighting forward and rather than laying back in that space. And so first I want to say that to you. And from a health standpoint, that's not easy to do. We all, I've said this for as long as I can remember. We all know someone that's 1 or 2 degrees of separation from having to fight through some sort of an addiction. But what I really appreciate in what you just said, Jason, is how you felt it would have been essentially a slap in the face to the persons that reached out to you during this trauma to accept the pardon. I mean, you're kind of in the same, and I'm sure this is a name that you recognize, and that's Pam Hemphill, who also publicly rejected the pardon that was, potentially going to be offered to her. What else was driving you when you said I can't accept this pardon?
One thing I just can't stop thinking about is Capitol Police and what they went through, and it's not just the probation officer that forced the sobriety on me. It was the police that got me, that arrested me. Had it not been the Capitol riot, I'm sure I would have gotten a DUI or something, and that's the first step along the way. And then I ended up in prison, and it'd be easy for me to kind of soak up this rhetoric that Trump's tossing around, like hero patriot nonsense. It's just complete nonsense. And and before having ever been in prison too, I'd also worked in corrections, so I've spent time in prison, and I've seen people come and go from prison, and people who leave prison blaming other people for their problems and not accepting responsibility, they end up coming back to prison. And so it's just kind of common sense, to agree with this pardon and say that, this is the Democrats' fault I ended up in jail. It's a complete lie. And I think it'd be only a matter of time. And I think it's only a matter of time for a lot of these Capitol rioters, so they end up back in prison themselves.
And then when there was in the first couple of weeks of this pardoning taking place, there were folks that went out again and committed crimes again, in some cases more heinous than the riot itself, and they are now back in the system on a state level. They've committed crimes, so they're not going to have the access to a federal pardon from Trump because they were committed in states where the legal authorities have said no, we're not going to be amenable to anything that the federal government tries to do for these people who were pardoned now that they've committed another crime. Let me ask you this question, Jason, and this is kind of tying into Rich a little bit and the organization. What have you been able to do to help others who are seeking, for lack of better words, a way out that are still in? I'm sure there's people, I shouldn't say I'm sure, I would make an assumption loosely that there are people that you have some loose communication with that are still part of MAGA. What are you trying to do to help them find the organization leaving MAGA and the bridge that it's trying to create for people who got caught up?
After the refusing the pardon, Rich Lowe just found me and reached out to me and showed me this organization of MAGA, and I'm happy to share it on Twitter. And I've it was actually before the pardon I stopped associating with people who are super MAGA, with the flags and the hats and the rallies. Not through any abrupt, like, I'm done with you. It just gradually happened naturally. I was just leading a very different lifestyle. But I have communicated with one individual who is still very much a Trump MAGA person. His name is what the hell is his name? He's wearing an ICE jacket at the C-Spec gathering. I'm trying to remember his name real quick.
That's okay. So
Brendan Fellows.
Brendan Fellows.
And
so what is it? What is it that's keeping someone like that still in? I mean, I guess that's probably the question that a lot of our listeners want to know. What is it that's keeping people still in MAGA, still part of this craziness? What is it that you see? We know what some of the draws might be, but what's keeping people still involved?
I think when people keep involved in MAGA, they are at all different levels. My own parents voted for him, but they're not rally going. It's an obsession for a lot of people, an obsession with Trump, and Trump, who's obsessed with himself, isn't telling them to stop obsessing over him. And it's really antisocial behavior, and it's kind of a vicious cycle. It involves a lot of not listening to other people. So I drawing people to left MAGA. Rich Lowe just has his work cut out for him over there, because I remember not being someone prone to listen, but his numbers are growing though.
Do you think, Jason, and going back to working through your addiction, do you think that without the addiction, or had the addiction not been there, and I know this is kind of going backwards and then trying to work forward, that would have given you the clarity to not get involved in MAGA, or would you still have had things that you liked about Trump that drew you to him? Does that make sense what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not trying to blame the addiction. I'm trying to find out what you feel the addiction did to further that. And if it weren't there, would you still have been drawn to Trump, to MAGA, and all that it represents?
Following Trump, it was almost like being a dedicated football team member, or like, I think Raiders fans are probably the closest thing to Trump fans. If you're looking for a football fan, it's the Raiders, because they're the ones who wear the makeup and they're crazy. And it was a social event for me. And as my personality became so toxic and I just became so hard to be around, I felt that social acceptance amongst the MAGA crowd, amongst these strangers. And, I remember, though, back in 2015, before I had gone off the rails, I was thinking about voting for a Republican, and I watched the first debate with the intention of being a Jeb Bush supporter. But following the debate and the spectacle that Trump put on and the way he took control of the crowd in the first primary debate, there was this kind of cheering brouhaha that started afterwards that I became part of, and it just never ended. The argument stopped being rational once he came in, and and I was in college. My friend and I were both military veterans, so we were a little older than all the other students, and all the other students were Bernie Sanders, younger college kids, and arguing politics in defense of Trump. It's not so much about proving someone right. It's just more about proving the other person wrong, even though you're completely in the wrong. And that was something that I overlooked for years. I went around on social media arguing with people and telling everyone how stupid they are and how wrong they are. And meanwhile, I was making a complete fool of myself and not helping anyone or just being a contributing member, part of my community. And I'm really happy I'm not living like that anymore.
Well, and I guess that's kind of what I was getting to in terms of what how the addiction may have fueled the draw to MAGA, or if it's where you were as a citizen that you were leaning to, and I think you somewhat answered it. You were leaning to vote for a Republican. Has the Republican Party, Jason, at this point, been co-opted by both MAGA and Trump? Or I shouldn't say. I'm trying to ask the question in a way that's fair to you. Has a Republican Party, the GOP, from your observation and experience in MAGA, been co-opted by MAGA?
I mean, yes, and that was that's why I voted for Harris too. I mean, one thing that really stood out that she said at the debate with Trump is we don't want to go back, and this was just such a giant step back, and the Jan Sixers, the group the group I'm a part of, that they feel so empowered by this pardon. And it's the extremism there. It's rising, and that Enrique Torres, the leader of the Proud Boys, he's talking like he's in charge of the SS, and it's his own group that he stormed the Capitol building with, and it's turning into like a little self-fulfilling prophecy. It's really scary.
So one of the you said you voted for Vice President Harris, and that tells me that you got to the bridge of help and you made it across the bridge and you saw the other side. Are the biases that affect so many people, racism, sexism, misogyny, nationalism, what I call my four legs to the stool, were you ever, or do you feel in terms of self-evaluation, someone that was part of that? I mean, if you were to objectively look at yourself or step out of yourself and look at yourself, would you say that you had been racist or you had been sexist or you had been misogynistic or nationalistic? Would you, if you were to step out of yourself and look at yourself, would you say that was part of who you were?
Oh, yeah. I still look back at myself and I'm afraid of him. I mean, I was driving around the country going to right-wing nationalist rallies, and some of the things he says at those rallies will end up coming out blatantly racist, blatantly sexist. And I mean, I was there cheering it on. I remember when he won the election, the group I was hanging out with, it was very uncomfortable. I remember when all the states showed the red states had voted for Trump, and I remember one person in the group was like, "Oh, I haven't seen the states that red since the Indians owned them," and it was such an ignorant comment. And I was always in these uncomfortable positions with these people making these uncomfortable comments and things like that. And if you are who you hang out with.
Yeah, that's true.
I tried to toe a fine line at first when I quit drinking. I'm like, all right, my politics aren't going to change just because I quit drinking. But then as at the beginning when I first quit and I was friends with some of these people and, they're making these decisions, and I realized there was no having a conversation with them because that's who I chose to hang out with. I chose people who didn't want to have a real conversation, who just wanted to antagonize people. And that's the MAGA movement is just this according to this one self-help book I read, 12 Rules of Life, it referred to the MAGA movement as this giant immaturity movement. And it is like one of the forefronts of Trump is does not accept responsibility. And I mean, that's what we did with the pardon, right? We're saying it's okay that you did this. The election was stolen. It's their fault. It's not your fault you attacked police officers. It's not your fault you trespassed or terrorized all the politicians and the cops inside the Capitol building. It's the Democrats' fault. Which is absurd.
Yeah.
It's completely absurd.
Well, Jason, listen, man, we got to wrap up the show today. And I feel like I could talk to you for a long time because I'm always, at least I've tried to be the person that says we make a mistake, we fall down, but we get back up again. And when we get back up, we come up stronger and we reach out to people that need to see the light. And I would just offer this to you. Keep pushing people to see the light. Keep pushing people to move forward and to cross this bridge that Rich from Leaving MAGA has created. And you know that because the simple fact that you're willing to acknowledge that this was a mistake and you're on a better path, tells me that there are folks out there that can hear that message. So thank you for being with us this morning. And Rich, good to hear your voice, man. I'm glad you're doing well, and glad to have both of you guys on the show this morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rich. Appreciate it.
All right, man. You guys be safe, and we'll talk with you soon. All right. Bye now.
Bye.
So listen, guys, the texts are blowing up, but I have to say this. I think you guys would want me to make sure that we're talking to people that are in this space or that we're in this space. And having Rich on and with this guest, Jason, says to me when he says something like, I voted for Vice President Harris, that the dude saw the light. I think now our responsibility is to push the people who have not seen the light to see the light, or at least offer them the opening when they do, and also make sure that the people who didn't participate in this last election do participate. That's where the good stuff is. So, it's challenging to have that conversation, but it's a conversation that we have to have because it does show that there are people who are trying to move away from the craziness and identify it and acknowledge it and take responsibility. And you can't ask any more of someone than to do just what Jason Riddle has done. So great to be with you guys today. Great to have our regular guest now, Sarah Jones from Politicus USA, and to hear all of your great voices and text messages that we have. If we didn't get to your call today, I apologize. Please give us a holler back tomorrow. We'll get you in. I hate when we can't get a caller in, but with the time that we have, sometimes it's a little bit tight. But make sure to reach out to us tomorrow with any updates of things that you're doing in your different communities and questions that you may have. What can I tell you? Choose Views again. Back here I am on April 14th, 2025. As always, guys, take a deep breath and make your life count. We'll see you tomorrow.